Edinburgh pulls up for three. Boom! Knocks it down.
Curry from the corner at three. Puts it in.
For overtime. Makes it go. Right.
A warm welcome to the MVP cast once again from myself, Mark Woods. Thank you as always for tuning in. Don't forget, if you want to keep right up to date with matters in this off season of British basketball, then head for our social media channels. Just search for MVP 24/7 in various guises on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Now, it's a big few weeks coming up for British basketball. It is EuroBasket Women starting next Thursday night in Ljubljana. Of course, a two-nation tournament hosted in Israel as well. Great Britain with a daunting prospect of facing the hosts in their first game on Thursday, and then, of course, the mighty French on the Friday, in Germany 2 days later to see if they get through to the knockout stages of the competition. Before then, some friendlies. Last weekend, 2 defeats in the Czech Republic in Prague. This weekend, 2 friendlies against the French. So our Bleu against Les Bleus, and the last test for Chema Butheta and his team. Of course, now a squad of 16 with Georgia Gale being able to join at the last minute after being cleared from an eye injury. We're joined now by another of Great Britain's hopefuls in this EuroBasket Women competition, Kirsty Brown. And Kirsty, you're relatively new to this Great Britain setup, but it must seem like a fabulous opportunity to be on this verge of your first major tournament.
Absolutely, yeah. Camp is a lot of fun. You know, I'm lucky enough. This is my third camp this year, third window I've been able to be a part of. And I just feel like each time I learn so much. Obviously, there's a bunch of new girls in this window, and it's been great to meet everybody and just have new competition in practice, fighting for those spots and getting ready for EuroBasket. So it's been good. So
we hear your accent. And it's straight out of California, all American girl. But of course, you're local to me. You're an Edinburgh girl by birth and by assimilation and proud Scot. So, explain for those who don't know. How does the journey begin being in Edinburgh and then end up in California and then back to Leicester?
Yeah, so I was born in Edinburgh back in 1999, and I lived there until I was 6 years old, and then my dad actually got a job opportunity out in California, so we moved our family out there, and it was only supposed to be for 2 years, and ended up loving California and everything that it had to offer. And now my parents are still there, so it's been about 16 or 17 years that they've been out there. And I was fortunate enough last year when I finish my college career and decided I wanted to play professionally, that got an offer from Leicester, and that was my way back in. So full circle moment for sure.
How fun has it been to have over the past year, a chance to come home, a chance to be back in the country? You had obviously some games in Scotland against Caledonia and the trophy final as well. I mean, it must be nice to reconnect.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that was a huge pull for me to come and play for Leicester, was the fact that all of my family is throughout the UK, whether it's Scotland or England. It's only my parents and my siblings that are in the States. So none of my family had actually ever seen me play in person before. So it was huge for them to be able to come to all different games this year, mostly Caledonia games, which was awesome to have that fan base up there. And then we obviously have some family down in England as well, so they were able to come to a couple games down there. So that was huge for me, was for them to be able to, instead of just, watching it on YouTube or watching clips on Facebook, they were able to come and see the live thing. So that was so much fun.
How much were you able to, or did you want to, or was it just around that sense of Scottishness, that you left behind? How did you stay in touch, other than I'm assuming regular trips back home?
Yeah, I think it's always been very important for me to stay connected, just to the whole Scottish culture and everything. And I've always made it a point, even since I was little, whenever anybody asks me where I'm from, I always say, I grew up in California, but I was born in Scotland. I was born in Edinburgh. So I make sure that people know, for me, it's both of those things. I count myself as both British and American. So it's definitely very important for me.
How did you did you sort of recall that moment? I know you kind of lived in the west coast of Scotland before heading out to the States, but was the memory strong of those first 7-8 years here before you headed stateside?
For me, they were, and I think that's mostly because I had already started school at that point. So I remember being in class. I remember some of my classmates, the friends we made there. And I think we have a really large family, more so on my mom's side, but we were super well connected with them and, always with the cousins and with the grandparents and things like that. So that's the part that I think we missed the most when we moved to California, is not having that family there all the time. So those are the memories that are strongest for me, for sure.
You grew up, or at least laterally, in a town, and I hope I'm pronouncing it right, Pleasanton. Is that correct?
That is correct.
It sounds very pleasant. Wasn't it?
It was. We were very fortunate to grow up in Pleasanton, for sure. It was a great community. It's right in the East Bay, so it's about 45 minutes to an hour from San Francisco, and there's obviously a lot of cities around the Bay Area, so there's always stuff to do. And we were always I have 3 younger siblings as well, and we've played pretty much every sport possible, so we were always able to travel around and play all the sports around there and everything. So it was a great place to grow up, for sure.
What for you was the sporting journey? Because basketball is obviously something naturally in the States that you're going to fall into. Was that the first love, or did it come when you sprouted and got quite tall?
Yeah, it definitely came actually later in life for me. So I didn't start playing basketball until I was 11 years old. And I started playing because it was when I went into middle school in the United States. And that's where we started having, school teams. And I was pretty much the tallest one in my grade. And I remember one of my friends who was also pretty tall, her mom was the assistant coach for the team, and she was like, come and try out. Like, we think you could be pretty good at it, because I was tall and I was quick. And it started from there, and I played every year since then. But the true love and dedication to basketball didn't actually come until my junior year of high school. So I was 16 years old, and that was when I decided, okay, basketball is the one sport, for me that I really want to focus on. I really love, I really want to keep pursuing. At that point, I was just thinking about college, but it was when I decided, okay, I'm going to stick to that in track. And then, once I graduate high school, it's just going to be basketball. So for me, it wasn't until I was about 16 years old.
What was your track events?
I was a 300-meter hurdler and a 4x4 relay second leg, and I did high jump for 3 weeks, but just 3 weeks.
I was going to say, you look like a high jumper. Yeah, that seems a natural fit.
Yes, well, my mom was a high jumper, so she was happy when I did it, but I did it literally the last 3 weeks of my high school career, so didn't really dedicate myself to that one too much.
Who knows where that could have gone? Who knows, indeed. You went to Cal Poly, which is a school that not everyone here will know. But what was your college experience like in terms of developing from a late starter to someone who has eventually now been able to turn pro and play internationally?
Yeah, it's been huge, and I completely credit my coaches and my teammates while I was there. I had so much fun. I loved my time at Cal Poly. And I think basketball obviously was a huge part of that, and just the people that I was around, the belief that they had in me, and the time that they were willing to put into me. So whether that was sitting down to watch film with my coaches, or putting in, extra work, doing individual workouts with my coaches, or going in and shooting with my teammates, everyone there always wanted to see everybody around you get better. And I think that showed, through my game as I progressed from my freshman year through my 5th year, and just the potential that I really grew upon and ended up, like you said, going pro. So
how intense was that environment? Were you someone that does flourish in that intense sort of atmosphere of college basketball?
Yeah, I think so. It was definitely very intense. We did all 5 years that I was there, we were doing 6 a.m. practice, lifting right after, like going straight into class, and then individual workouts and film and everything on top of that. So it was full year-round season, full days, definitely very, very intense. But I think kind of like I said, like it pushed me and helped me grow into the player that I am today. And I definitely don't think I would be as mentally strong, as physically strong as I am now if it wasn't for, those really tough and challenging days that we had.
I mean, you talk about that mental strength. I mean, are you someone who's naturally competitive, naturally tough? Because we look at you in the court. I mean, the position that you play, you have to be tough. You show toughness. Is that something that was inbuilt or something that's learned?
I think for me, it was definitely inbuilt. I think part of that comes with, like I said, I have 3 younger siblings. So from a very young age, we were always competitive in everything that we did. So I feel like for me, I'm personally very internally motivated, and I think that comes out just in any workouts we're doing, even if I'm doing it by myself and I'm just going against the clock, whether if it's in a sprint or I'm trying to get a certain score in a shooting drill. I will get very frustrated if I'm not achieving or beating whatever the goal is that I'm trying to get. So for me, it was definitely something that I was just born with, grew up with, and have internally.
Did you always feel that coming out of college? I mean, obviously you'd kind of looked across the Atlantic or looked elsewhere, but did it always feel like you wanted to try this professional thing? I mean, was it always that sort of thing of, I think I'm good enough, I think the opportunity's there because I've got this handy passport? Was it the ambition there throughout college, or when did that manifest itself?
It actually didn't really come about until my 5th year that I was there, because when I finished my 4th year of school, I was undecided if I wanted to take my COVID year, because I hadn't redshirted at all, but we obviously got that COVID year, so I had an extra year to use. And I was staying for the 2nd year of my master's anyway, so I was deciding whether or not I wanted to keep playing. And then, obviously I decided, I can't see myself being at Cal Poly and not playing basketball. So I decided to take that 5th year. And then when I started going into my 5th year and, talking to my coaches about, what could potentially come after season and what was I looking to do after graduation and everything, I was like, I don't see myself being done with basketball yet. And then, so it kind of got planted in me at the start of the season. And then I was really unfortunate in February of 2022, and I had a knee injury that actually ended my college career. And that was kind of the point for me that I was like, oh yeah, I'm definitely not ready to be done. Oh, excuse me.
That knee injury, I mean, how tough was it? I mean, because you always, when you finish a college career, especially for 5 years, you kind of want to go out in a bang.
Yeah, it was tough. It was very tough. I think, shout out to my roommate. She helped me through a lot mentally. I was obviously pretty upset when I found out that I wasn't going to be able to finish the way I wanted. But I was also very fortunate in the fact that when I got hurt, I think I was like 4 or 5 games away from the record at Cal Poly for most games played. And my coach actually let me suit up for the next couple games, and I would start the game and then they'd sub me out literally a second into the game. So I was able to get the record, even if we cheated it a little bit at the end. But I think that just kind of shows the character of the program. And, she had said to me, like, you've put in the work and you deserve to kind of leave that legacy kind of behind.
What was your stats like in those few minutes? Did you ever take a shot? Did you ever try and get a steal?
No, I wish.
That must have damaged your averages.
They did, but when we sent them out for the end, we just kind of cut out those games and put the averages as they were before.
The real GM never lies. It never ever lies. There was a point when and I read this, so you can clarify what the story is. That you looked at trying to get into GB under 20s and it didn't come off. Why not?
I think I don't know totally for sure, to be honest. It was my freshman year of college, and I reached out to the under 20s coach, and I emailed whoever it was at the time and just said, hi, like, my name's Kirsty Brown. Oh, excuse me, I tickled my throat. And I just said, I was born in Edinburgh, so I have my British passport. I'm currently, playing basketball at Cal Poly, and I would love to talk to you about trying to come and play GB during the summer or whenever. And whoever the coach was replied and said, that they'd watch me throughout the season. And that was kind of the last that I heard from them from that. And then nothing until I got here back in the fall. So don't really know what happened there, but it all worked out in the end.
Well, another in the many long lines of British basketball failures, but we'll skip over that one. Leicester. Obviously the passport helps, and coming back to a familiar environment helps. How did it come about?
Oh, so that would just be through my agent, basically. I'm super fortunate to have an agent who, is pretty well connected, and he just sent out my film and got some interest from Krumesh, our head coach, and then forwarded me his number, and I had a call with Krumesh and a call with Russell, who's obviously our GM, and those both went really well, and then worked out, and I ended up at Leicester. So
what did you know about the WBBL before touching down on these shores?
Not much. I knew of a couple players who I had either played against in college or heard of in college that had come over to play, but I hadn't heard that much about the WBBL as a whole. So it was pretty much brand new for me.
A season in, what's your impressions? Because it certainly last season, watching it, felt like the best season yet in terms of certainly at the top end of the league. That the caliber had gone up. Scale of 1 to 10, how tough is it?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say I would give it an 8. I think obviously there's games that are more challenging than others, and then factoring in like the travel and everything with that. And I think our training schedule was more similar to what I was used to in college compared to what I've heard from some other teams being their training schedule. So I think for us, just as a whole, it was tough, but it was pretty fun, and I had a lot of fun this year for sure.
Is the word to sum up the past season frustration at coming so near but so far?
It's hard because yes, though, especially when you think about all of the finals, like the word for all those finals, I would say, is definitely frustration. But as a whole, for the whole season, it has to be successful. Like we set our goal at the beginning of the season was to make all 3 finals, which we did. So we were successful in that aspect. And we wanted to finish top 3 in the league, which we did. We were successful in that aspect. So as much as the finals themselves, obviously, were very frustrating, overall, the season, I think, was a huge success.
Talk about GB. To finish off in the Riders, are you going to be back there next season, or head overseas, or Caledonia sending you a blank check?
It's a good question. I can't quite reveal where I will be next season yet, but you will definitely find out in the next few weeks. Very
interesting. There we go. So before then, of course, EuroBasket. The build-up's been, it's curtailed. There's only four friendly games. Last weekend against the Czechs, let's be honest, it wasn't a good start. A bit closer in the second game. How have you felt about the progress during this camp, particularly with some players coming in later than others?
Yeah, I think it's been good. Like you said, those games are obviously pretty tough for us, but I think it showed, that we know we have a pretty new group compared to the last 2 windows. So it's really just going to come down to building the chemistry, finding the right shots for everybody. Because I think our biggest struggle in the first game was just overall our communication, especially on defense, and we fixed that a lot going into our second game, but we just still didn't have those shots falling that we needed. So I think it's really just down to the chemistry, like I said, making sure the right people are taking the right shots. We're not forcing things up. We're really playing that team basketball, and that just kind of comes with time, especially with a new group. So I think this past week of practice has been great for us as well, and I'm sure these couple games against France and then our last couple practices going into the main games at EuroBasket are going to be massive for us.
What's been the sort of magic formula, perhaps, of Chema in trying to put this together? Because there's been a transition over the past year. There's been a transition even the last few months with people stepping away, and you've got a lot of new players coming in on the eve of a tournament, which is unusual. Is there been a process there that you felt for trying to effectively build a new team here with the foundations of people like yourself who have come in over the past 6-8 months, and then that small holdover group like Tammy and Kirsty who've been there before?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just trust and knowing that, Chema brings in every player for a reason, and they're just figuring out how everybody fits into the program, fits into the team, finds their roles, is going to be huge. So just sounds kind of cliche, but just trusting the process and knowing that it is a journey, and if we want to be successful, we just have to trust that everything is going to go according to plan.
Give us a taste of Chema. For those who aren't as fortunate as me, who have sat in some of his practice, aren't as very fortunate as you who get to work with him on a regular basis. What's he like? What's he like as a coach?
Chema is great. He is just this little ball of energy. He's always, running around after us on the court. With us, he's pulling us aside to do post moves with us and trying to defend us and do all this. And he is just passionate. You can tell he loves the game. He loves us as players, and he wants us to be successful. And I think that is huge for a coach.
How many practices were you into your, I guess, involvement with GB before you heard the phrase positive glasses?
Oh, that's good. I wish I could remember back to November, but it was probably pretty quick.
They're always there. They're always wearing with
yeah.
Chema. Let's talk about the tournament as well next week. You guys, it's a tough start. You're in Slovenia against the hosts in the first game on Thursday. Then France. You're playing them this weekend, but they're perennial contenders for this. On the Friday, then the Sunday against Germany in the final group. I mean, it's a tough group, particularly for an inexperienced team. But what's the vibe about how this tournament's going to go?
I think everyone is just excited. I think, like you said, it is a tough group, and we know that. But I think everybody that's here is very ambitious and is dedicated and has been putting in the work in camp. And, we want to go out there and show everybody, we may be, kind of a new group, but that doesn't mean that we're not as good as the previous groups, and we're not as good as the teams that are in there that have been practicing for however long or however many years together. So everyone wants to go out there and show them who GB is.
Is that important, do you think? I mean, who knows whether you guys will make the second round, but to at least this group and whoever the 12 are, whoever the 4 or 3 who are on the reserve list watching on, but is it important, do you think, to kind of set a foundation so that over the next 5 years, players like yourself who are kind of just ahead of the prime of your career and others in that same category can say, well, you know what, next time we don't have to be fearful. We should be contending. We should be qualifying.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's important, like you said, to set that standard now, especially with so many younger girls in this group. Set that standard and keep growing on it. Set those ambitions on each window as it goes through each next level, and just keep pushing to qualify. And
in the future, is the dream sort of tournaments? I mean, obviously the last GB generation came incredibly close to an Olympic Games. The next Olympics bar one is going to be in LA, in a certain state called California, where a certain family reside. I mean, I know we're talking sort of fairy tale stuff here, but it's a nice dream to have, isn't it, in 5 years' time?
Absolutely, yeah. It's definitely up there on my vision board.
There you go. That would be the whole family, nice family day out, or 3 days out, or 5
exactly.
days out, whatever that is. Anyway, Kirsty, we wish you well, both this weekend and in the weeks and years ahead, and we look forward to the unveiling of the secret destination.
Thank you so much. Thanks for chatting with me too. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Good luck. And those 2 games against France this weekend, Friday evening, Saturday evening in Lyon. You can keep right up to date with the results of those. Just follow MVP on Twitter at MVP_247. That's it for this edition of the MVP Cast. Next week we will have a special EuroBasket Women preview edition. We'll bring you all the thoughts from inside the camp about how the tournament's going to go. But hopefully it's going to go well. Let's keep our fingers crossed for that one. That is it though for this edition of the podcast. If you want to reach out to me, you can get hold of me at Mark Britball. That's where you can get me on Twitter or various other ways you can find it. Just Google. That's the easiest way to do it. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the podcast. You can get all our previous editions at the website at mvp247.com. But from me, Mark Woods, thank you again for tuning in, and it's goodbye.